Welcome back, everybody. Hot Mic off and rolling. Jordy Collins going to join us about an hour. Bison women won their 15th in a row last night, which makes our next guest imminently happy. We're really pumped to have NDSU AD Matt Larsen anytime on the show, but in studio. Welcome to the cave in here.
Yeah, this is the first time ever.
Yeah.
I could have swore. I figured you like glass, top floor kind of penthouse studio.
No, we're down to the basement.
Yeah, but you know what? It's intimate though.
Yes,
I like it. It's got a good feel to
and,
it. So.
I asked you on the coldest day of the year to come out, so even more impressed that you stopped by. I appreciate that.
I almost got frostbite on the way from the parking lot to the front door, but it was worth it.
It's January. Honestly, because you're a New Yorker like myself. I mean, we don't deal with this. Like we get where I'm from, we get a ton of snow, but not cold like this.
No, this is pretty extreme.
Yeah.
Now I will say, now again, 40 below, take it or leave, right? But at least I actually like the Fargo winters better than the New York ones, where it was that wet, cold, and heavy snow.
And, it was gross.
You know, and then it was always snow, and it would melt, and it was nasty.
My dad was just talking about that last week.
I actually prefer ours. Again, if we can minimize the 40 below days, I'm all in.
I really appreciate coming in. We got a lot to get to here over the next hour. Let me just start with Jory's team here, because you and I have had so many conversations in the past on women's basketball and where it was at. So now here you are. Are you gloating a little bit in 2026? Like, hey, this is a lot of work's paid off and we're in good shape right now?
Well, I mean, it is. I mean, and it's been a lot of people doing a lot of things to get us here. And, I go back to when we hired Jory and the idea of wanting to bring somebody who had head coaching experience, that had built a program, had success at a high level, and he did that. And I know from day one, his goal was, okay, how do we win the Summit League tournament? And knowing that SDSU, who's done an unbelievable job, is going to be in the way. And so I think last weekend is, again, we still have a long way to go, a lot of season, but that was a really good sign of where our program is. And Jory and I were talking yesterday of just, even from last year, a lot of the same parts, but just the way we take care of the ball, the level of confidence we have in there, our system, we're playing at a really, really high level. And it's been fun. And even you look at last night's game, coming off a really emotional game at SDSU, but just find ways to win, take care of the ball. All the things that, maybe have plagued us in the past are starting to all come together.
Combined with Dave's team's 12-0 in the Summit League. I mean, you and I also have plenty of conversations about people coming out for basketball. They did last week. Like to see, I mean, they're winning. I don't know what else you can do right now.
And not only are we winning, but I think when you look at, if you're a sports fan, it's about, you want to also see entertaining competition too. And I think both of our teams are fun to watch. They're high level, high pace. We have some players on our men's basketball team that we haven't had that type of player at NDSU, and that's not to say we haven't had good players, but just a different level of athleticism that I think we're seeing now, and it's a fun brand of basketball to watch. We're defending our tails off. There's some high flying, but we're also finding ways to win in a bunch of different ways. So credit to both coaches, both staffs, both groups of student athletes who are just playing at a really high level right now. 3,300
last Wednesday, I thought was really good. Almost 3,000 on Saturday.
Yeah.
Is there anything you guys did differently in marketing to address this year?
We did some things. We continue to try to just pull different levers to try to unlock some folks. Certainly winning is a big part of it. And I think, honestly, both teams having success is contagious a little bit from a fan base perspective. So I think that's been good. I never think giveaways are the end all be all, but people are clamoring after those replica jerseys or whatever.
Yeah.
So we're going to do it again for a women's game here. But I also think too that people, when they came out, man, this is fun. Man, it's a great atmosphere. Man, we got to do this again type of thing. And so we saw it kind of carry over. And, hopefully down the home stretch, we got a big one on Saturday for the women. USD's playing at a high level. They're kind of back a little bit. They had a little bit of a dip. So that's not a walk in the park. And I think people are realizing that fans can make a difference in the Shack. When that place gets loud, boy, it's a great home court advantage.
Experienced that last year in the WNIT. I really thought that those three, the last two especially, with Washington State and Troy, it was like, wow, this is what it can be regularly. And I say that on the show all the time. And I got some pushback last week from fans saying, well, the attendance is pretty good comparative to others. But my thing on this is, Why can it not be that all the time is what I ask.
Right.
And I'm sure you guys are asking that too.
And I think so much we don't necessarily always try to compare ourselves to
No,
others.
right.
How good can we be?
Yeah.
How good can we have a home court advantage? Because there are some other mid-majors who, are consistently doing that from the tip-off of non-conference through the end of the season, and just the tone it sets. And, especially at NDSU where it's hard to get home games. If we can get them and we can, try to protect home court and win those games, boy, that really sets you up for success down the road.
I was saying that on the broadcast that Dave's team beat Southern Illinois, Jory's team beat Tulane. Good luck. I mean, the game's going to get awfully harder now after getting those 2 wins.
Absolutely, and that's the hard part. I always say basketball scheduling is the hardest, and partially because administrators handle football scheduling, right? So there's not you talk to men's basketball ADs, nobody can get games. Well, if nobody can get games, that means there's a lot of availability. But it's, I don't want to start at your place, or you know what, you're too good at home, and good Lord, it's tough. But yeah, especially when you have 2 teams who are playing well, it's going to make it that much harder.
I got to feed this one last week. It blows my mind. So the games are on TV, so I want to go. And that was a thing I remember like 20 years ago. I don't get that one, because that's directed at we love broadcasting the games, but that I don't. The availability, I guess, and that's with all sports. It's not college.
Yeah.
Pro sports are fighting that as well, of getting butts in the seats right now.
I still think, there's something to be said about, it's great sitting on your couch and watching in the comfort of your own home. To me, there's something about being in venue, the atmosphere, the game, and more than anything else, knowing as a fan, if I'm passionate about my team, I'm not having a huge impact on my couch in West Fargo. I'm having a pretty big impact. I bring my whole family, and we're there, and we're loud, and we're into it. I'm having an impact there. And so that's what I would just challenge folks is, again, I know it's not easy. It's a lot of games, all of those kinds of things. But the impact that you have in those venues in person is huge.
I want to hit a bunch of topics. You just got back from Washington, D.C. for the NCAA convention. Was there anything headline out of that you guys made headway with? Because there's about, 1,000 things right now on the NCAA's docket.
Yeah, no, so fortunate to be on the D1 cabinet, which is a new part of the new governance structure. It's outside of the board of governors or board of directors, which is your presidents. We're kind of that highest ranking committee, and kind of reformulated the committee a little smaller. So we have a lot of work to do. And so it was good. I mean, we're tackling a number of different things. We passed some portal window requests for men's and women's basketball, wrestling. We passed men's hockey. There were a couple things that we passed there. The one big thing is we also kind of outlined a timeline for deregulation of rules. There's been a lot of the challenges the NCAA has had is you have this national organization governing everything. Well, that poses antitrust issues.
Yeah.
And so being able to deregulate and the things that don't impact national championships, postseason, some of the things that are core to the NCAA, but a lot of things we ask ourselves in the D1 cabinet meeting is, should the NCAA be regulating this or this? And so trying to deregulate some of those things, push them back down to conferences and institutions, so that way the national office can focus on the things most important to running the organization.
Eligibility is a big one, Matt. I mean, right now we got a case in Alabama where a player that played professionally is now going to probably play for Alabama this weekend.
Yeah.
The 5 for 5 we talked about last week when the 9-game redshirt rule got thrown out there. Where are things at here, and is this an FCS thing that we're going to see happen in 2026 as well?
I think if you ask President Baker, the head of the NCAA, he would probably say one of our greatest challenges right now is being able to defend our eligibility rules, or enforce our eligibility rules, because you're seeing a lot of it's not in federal court, it's in state courts where judges may be elected or maybe they graduated from institution. You're seeing some partiality, and it's really a one-off situation. They're trying to do what's best for that kid versus seeing the ripple effects that go across the industry. And so, honestly, our biggest challenge is we need to have eligibility rules that we can enforce and hold institutions accountable to. So whether that's Congress supporting that at some level, and there's been a lot of lobbying to Congress, or whether or not as a D1 cabinet or as an organization, we can create defensible eligibility models as we move forward. So those are the things that we're tackling, but that is front of mind for NCAA staff, for the D1 cabinet, a lot of ADs across the country, and presidents of how do we solve that piece, because then that helps. The ripple effect from getting that in place will help.
Is
in a
the
lot of ways.
5 for 5 realistic? Because there's so many legal cases out there. And for viewers and listeners that don't know, that means you get 5 years to play 5. There's no more medical red shirt. There's no more red shirting at all. That's your clock is 5 years and it starts right away.
Yeah, and potentially no waivers. And
yes,
because part of what our issues are, we have a lot of waivers.
Yep.
You know, but I think the national office will tell you it's going to be really hard to say, okay, absolutely no waivers ever, because there's always just unique situations.
There's going to be circumstances surrounding an athlete.
The other issue with 5 for 5 too is, there are some, it's not as simple as just flipping the switch and say we're going to do it. There are some legal risk there, based on the classes that have over the last 10 years that didn't have that opportunity and could say they have a case, an antitrust case. So there's just a lot of moving parts, and there's not just one. If it was a simple solution, we would have done it 6 years ago. So there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of legal risk to a lot of these things. So trying to get to the best place.
Would the FCS sign off on the 9-game redshirt rule? Would that happen as early as this fall?
I think, again, that came out of the AFCA convention, the coaches meeting. That's not something that has been talked at nationally at a high level right now. I think there'd have to be a lot of conversation that would go into that, the pros, the cons, pluses, minuses, all of those things. So I would be hard pressed to think that we would see that this fall. But, but again, we'll see.
All right, let's break. We'll get a couple more questions in this first hour. Got much more coming. Matt Larsen joining us here in studio till about 10:30 this morning. Back on Hot Mic. Wrap up hour 1 right after this. All right, wrapping up our first hour. Back. Matt Larsen joining us here. Surprisingly, there's some football questions. I'm going to do that. We have more time in the second hour. Are you cool with that?
No, that's good.
We're going to dive into that. We're talking. There's so much minutia here, and I think you deal with fans all the time that it's easy to your eyes glaze over and say, I want to pay attention to the games. But my counterpoint always is that this affects everything that you're going to watch. That's why it's important to know when the portal is going to be, what NIL is at, why collectives are a thing. All of that affects what you're eventually going to see. I know people that want to, hey, I just want to focus on the court, on the field. But this stuff that you deal with on a day-to-day basis is huge.
Well, no, and I think there's a reality too. I think every time I talk about when are we going to fix this?
Yeah.
Right. When are we going to fix the portal? When are we going to fix all of those things? And I don't know if those things are ever going to go away. Now, hopefully there's greater enforcement, there's more guardrails around it, all of those things. But we're in an element now, we're not going to go away from NIL ever. If anything, the next step could be employment through certain sports. So it's just a lot of pieces, but all of those things do impact our ability to retain players, what the roster is going to look like a year from now, and all of those things, and then just fan engagement. I mean, it impacts all of that stuff. So those things are, when people ask, what are you spending your time on? It's fundraising, and it's all of those things that really, I think, my job has shifted significantly to those things versus what it was probably 10 years ago.
We're about 7 months into the Green and Gold Collective. Describe how the launch has gone.
It's been really good. I mean, I think a huge shout out to our development staff, team makers, I think, for bringing it in-house and basically building the Green and Gold Fund in a matter of 3 weeks and getting it up and running and communicating it out. And the response from fans has been really, really good. I think part of it is I think we tried to purposely get out and meet with as many people as we could. And, after we met with our coaches and identified what their needs are. And I think the biggest thing that's resonated with our folks, one is that maybe 2 or 3 years ago it wouldn't have, is one, it is kind of here to stay, right? Like this, if we want to, we can put our head in the sand and watch our teams not be successful,
about it, right?
Or we can embrace it, understand it, and build a program that makes sense for NDSU. And I think the other thing too with all of our coaches, there's an element of you need to earn it. You're not going to just, I think that's part of our history, our tradition, all of those kinds of things. So I think from that point, having those conversations with our donors and fans, I think they get that. And so they've showed up. And so there's opportunities, whether it's a monthly subscription, support a particular sport, support general, or, we've met with some donors to do just some one-time gifts or recurring gifts throughout the year. And it's been really good. Again, we still want to continue to grow it. And, there's plenty more opportunity there. And so encourage folks, if it's something you're interested in, because I think we are doing some really good stuff in terms of the level at which we financially support our student athletes. I encourage folks to get on board.
Is there age range that you found so far in this? I know, is it an older fan base? Is it more the Gen Xer or is it kind of a wide swath you're hitting right now?
It's pretty much of a wide swath, I think. And even when you looked at folks that were members of the collective, that was probably, I would say, probably a little more towards the younger side. And I think now it's probably a little more open up. I would say it's a pretty diverse group of folks. Now, mostly, I mean, people that are giving large pledges over the course, those are going to be probably a little bit older. But I mean, a lot of I see some former student athletes who are doing monthly contributions. I see some folks I know in the community that, have a young family and they're doing some things because, and what I would say is, I think sometimes in this world, people think, okay, if I'm not giving $50,000, I'm not making an impact. And I would argue if you're giving $25 a month, there's an impact there because you look at the accumulation of all of those $25 months, they add up and they have a real impact.
Two last things, not NIL related. You were in Nashville. I saw you there because I was there for the Peyton ceremony. You stayed for the game. Watching on television looked fantastic. Your thoughts on Nashville maybe retaining this beyond 2027?
Yeah, I mean, it was really good, and I've always been a big proponent of Frisco, and I think the job that Toyota Stadium has done and that area, I mean, they embraced the championship. I think a couple of things that I think Nashville is probably a little bit different is, one, it's a destination.
Yes.
Right? I mean, it just is. People go to Nashville all the time for a long weekend, and so I think that having it in a football stadium, I think, had a different feel to it probably than what we've seen over the course of the last 15 years or so. A lot more. I mean, Vanderbilt did an unbelievable job of, one, hosting it, but also some of the renovations they did.
Yeah, the suites
were
really
cool. A lot of
premium
premium club spaces, suites, and I think what we've seen from our fans is those are the type of experiences that they like. We talk about it all the time. People, take in games a myriad of different ways. That's why the FargoDome renovation was so important because that would have added some of those things. And then just to see, I think one of the neat things about Nashville is it's not a huge footprint. Right? I mean, so people are down there and everybody's congregating on Broadway, and it just, the ease of it for fans, for all of those things. And then I talked to Leon Costello, the AD at Montana State, down in D.C., and just asked from a team perspective, how was it? They said it was phenomenal.
And they were staying at the Opryland Hotel, which is a city upon itself.
It is. Both teams are there, and they're a mile and a half away from each other. But, I mean, really liked it. And so, I mean, that's the thing at the end of it. You want to make sure the team, it's a good experience for the team and the players and all that stuff. But from a fan perspective, from another administrative perspective, I thought really well done.
TV rating was really good.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to be I know you're not on the committee anymore, but you got to hope that ESPN can make it happen to keep it there going forward.
I hope so. And again, it's always a balance. I think no matter where you have it, it's people like it, don't like it. I know some people say, wow, it's harder to travel to, but I just look at having been there now both times for the night games on Monday night. The atmosphere was phenomenal.
It's big time.
It really is. And that's going to be the challenge. It's only guaranteed for these first 2 years. And now with potential expansion, the NFL looking to do some different, you just don't know. But I think the fact that we've had really good ratings the last 2 years, I think ESPN understands, like, this is an important championship, and that window is going to be really important to try to find.
All right, we'll break. We come back. We're going to hit football hot and heavy here. We start our second hour. Matt Larsen still with us for another half hour, NDSU Athletic Director. It's coming up. We come back to start hour 2 on a Thursday morning right after this.
This is Hot Mic. Hot Mic. On the networks of WDAY. Here's Dom Izzo.
Welcome back, everybody. Hour 2, ready to rock and roll. Matt Larsen back with us. Just so you know, you're bumping Sam. Getzinger normally is on here, and that's a very popular segment. Just so you know.
I bet it is. I'm a fan of Sam's. Sam does a great job.
Everybody is.
So Sam, I apologize.
We've gone a half hour and we haven't mentioned the letters FBS, so you had to know that was probably coming. So we got a bunch of questions coming in.
Oh, did we say an hour? I said only a half hour I could do.
There was one Twitter. Social media is awesome for some things, but there was one couple there I want to get to. Let's first start how the football season ended. Just in the last now 6 weeks that have gone by, some would say, well, nothing good has happened with Bison football since the season ended. Season ended with a second-round loss. 8 starters left in the portal. Jim Kramer retired. How would you rebut that right now, if you would rebut that right now?
Well, I would say, I mean, we also, there were some real positive. We went to Arizona and did some great fundraising. There's some really positive things about, I think, the future of Bison football, as there always is every year. I think for folks, too, is, if we were, let's say we played in Nashville, do you lose 8 players? Maybe, maybe not. With the dollar figures that were being thrown around, there's probably as good a chance of that as anything, right?
Definitely someone have left.
Yeah,
yes.
and so I think that's I kind of take that off the page a little bit from Kramer's perspective. One, I mean, he's really hard to replace. I think we've probably done as good as we can with, basically a protege of his and Ryan Napoli, who learned under him for a number of years, left, came back, and so much of who Jim is, I think Ryan replicates that in a lot of different ways. But Jim was a special. I mean, you hear from players, former coaches, the impact that he had on our program. I would say one of the things I do is I always listen to the team when they give their senior speeches, and you learn a ton about our program and the amount of tears when people are talking about Jim Kramer. And mind you, probably the hardest person to please. I mean, he's hard and just accountability and expectations, but the impact he's had on our program. But no, I think there's a lot of really good things, a lot of positives, because, at the end of the day, in the grand scheme of things, if we lose 6 to 8 players, whatever it is, in comparison to other schools, and we're retaining a lot and building depth, and I'm excited about the future. And then you look at, if you ask our coaching staff, we were able to go into the portal and we didn't throw out a zillion offers. We were very targeted and focused with players that we think can come in and have an impact right away. So, I think our coaching staff did an unbelievable job of embracing the situation, and honestly, coming out on the back end, I think we're in a really good place. There
was a report out of Hero Sports right before the new year on North Dakota State and FBS football. I don't want to read part of this. From Casey Smurthwhite, who reported this, says, my overall pulse after talking with multiple people is largely unchanged from several months ago. One side of NDSU's campus is fully engaged and exploring the idea, while the other side is not there yet. The key words are yet and no. I'm not going to specify which side is which. Can you address that?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I think I've never had a conversation with this gentleman before in my life.
Okay.
So I would be really, really curious who his source is and who he talked to, because the one thing I would say about myself and President Cook, we've been in lockstep in terms of the direction of NDSU athletics and what our focus is and where we want to head. So I just think it's really interesting. That's why you opened up with, social media is, there's a lot of misinformation and out there. So I don't know where that came from. So I'd be curious to hear from his sources or from him where he got that from.
So give us an update. Can you tell us on what NDSU's position is, FBS, Mountain West, anything changed there?
Well, I mean, I would say in terms of our position is, I think both myself and President Cook, we want to play at the highest level, and right now the highest level is FBS football. And so I think the things that we've done over the course of the last decade have positioned us to be able to do that. And if there's an opportunity, I think it's something we would absolutely explore. If there's not an opportunity, we're poised to continue competing at FCS at a really, really high level and compete for championships. So I would say in terms of our position, it hasn't changed at all. And our interest of at least exploring that is as strong as it's ever been.
Can you tell if the Mountain West called Dr. Cook or yourself?
No, they have not called Dr. Cook or me.
How frustrating is it to deal with these questions constantly? Especially for me or McFeely, because those are the two asking on it.
Well, I mean, I understand why.
Because I'm sure you want a different answer.
I would love to give you a different answer here at some point, whether, hey, it's never going to happen, or we got an invite, we're going, right? No, I mean, I think the reason why you answer, the same reason why I think there's a level of interest on campus is because of, I think, where our football program is, what we've been able to accomplish collectively as an institution, as a fan base, all of those things. And I think just looking at the potential upside. So I completely understand the questions. I don't get frustrated by them. I wish I get frustrated by not having a different answer. But I think for folks to understand too is, I know there's a lot of folks that think we don't do anything. right? And that we don't.
I think there is that. Yeah. How do you?
That.
I guess how do you address that? Because I know you and I have talked about. You can't be overly aggressive because I'm sure you would be out there stomping your feet saying, wait a minute, Northern Illinois got in and I can say that. Northern Illinois got in and we couldn't. So I guess how do you address that?
Well, I guess what I would just say to folks is, if being engaged and vocal on social media got you what you wanted, well, shoot, everybody would do it all the time. But how's that success rate on there? So, and that's where I just say, again, I think we've been very, thoughtful in terms of our investment, where we've invested, how we've positioned ourselves. And honestly, I think NDSU is incredibly attractive for a lot of reasons. And so I think to those folks is, we're going to continue. My job is to position NDSU for the best possible future success we can have. And I would just let folks know that that's what we are doing every single day.
How does that change with a new president coming in?
You know what I would say, and I always share this story, and I thought it was really interesting when we went through this process last time and met with all the candidates when President Cook was hired. When we met with him, and actually all the candidates said this, by the time they met with a small group from athletics, they had met with undergrad, grads, people in the community, faculty, staff, you name it, and everybody said how important athletics is at NDSU. And so I do think there's an element of, it's not just what the athletics department doing. These are always institutional decisions. Institutional support is really important in these things. So I know being on the search committee now, as we look at possible candidates and those things, athletics is a huge piece of that. It just is, and the future success of athletics is incredibly important.
Would you contend at the Power 4 level that likely, I'll put that under word, that they're done for expansion, that there is movement, though, in the group of 5 level still to come?
Yeah, I would say, I think for the foreseeable future, and I would say that's probably before 2032, I think there's probably not a ton of movement at the Power 4 level. I would be surprised if something happened there. I do still think there's need and desire, I think, from both the Mountain West
and from
a Pac-12, because again, especially when you have a lot of other FBS leagues and even FCS are going to 9-game schedules. The availability of non-conference games is hard, and so how do you solve that? Well, you have more league games, right? And so I think needing to get to 10 to 12, I think from a group of 5 is probably important and would be a goal, whether that's a 2 to 3 year goal or a 5 to 10 year goal. But I would think there's still opportunity for movement there.
Another email comes in. This is another favorite topic you and I talk about. Dom, can you ask Matt the chances of getting some FBS opponents sooner than later? So on the schedule, Oregon's up for 2028.
Correct.
That is the only FBS team out there right now.
That is the only one right now.
Is that still going to?
As of right now,
it's a hefty buyout, right? It's about $1 million, I think, for them to buy out of it.
So no, it's still on the docket, and we plan on being in Eugene here in a couple of years. And again, if anybody wants to do an open records request on all of the emails, phone logs of everybody we've called, I encourage you to do that.
Well, your deputy told me, and then he got in trouble when he told me who he was talking to.
Well, that's because, he basically spilled the beans before he was supposed to, so I'll never let him live that down. But no, this is something, like I said, I say, and again, this is one I say all the time, is those games are important to us. We want to schedule them, and we try, and we call everybody, and we work with Dave Brown, who used to work for ESPN in terms of scheduling and trying to unlock some things, and he laughs when we call him. Just because he said, he's like, they're not going to play you. And so that's, and that's unfortunate because, again, I think it's a missed opportunity for our fan base, our team, players, all that stuff. But no, we are committed to playing an FBS game.
Would you think, this is something I debate quite a bit actually here on this show, if an FBS move comes, would those games still be hard to get? Like a game with Minnesota, a game with Nebraska, a game with Wisconsin, which your fan base clamors for. I go back and forth on that because they know you, but now would it be easier to get if you're an FBS opponent?
I would like to think that those will be easier. Not, I won't say easy, but they will be easier to get, I think, just because there's less risk there. If you have another FBS program that comes in and, ends up, winning one at your place, there's less risk versus an FCS school.
Because that's what my contention was, and I think there was some pushback. Well, why would they play him now if they weren't going to play him there? I think just that letter designation is a big thing, isn't it?
There is, and there's way less risk there, especially when you have so many FCS schools that are selling 2 games. So I can play. I don't want to name it. I can play X school that had 3 wins last year versus the 10-time national champs.
How about the fact that you were able to get the deal in Las Vegas? How big a deal is that for the fan base coming in 2027 for the second game of the season?
Yeah. No, it's really cool. It's something that we had in the works. Gosh, it was probably 3 years almost.
No kidding.
Had some attempts and failed, and then we were able to pull this together. And it's what's been neat too. I think the opponent's really neat too.
Absolutely.
I mean, Leon's become a good friend out there, and obviously the Brent Vegan ties. Him and Tim are really, really good, close. And then it's become a really good rivalry, between the amount of times that we've matched up against each other. And then I think just for the fan base, I mean, what a great destination. We've tried the destination piece, and it's been really successful. And I don't know if there's a better one than Vegas.
Nashville will be the other one up there, but Vegas is pretty darn good.
Yeah.
Can you give us an update on Tim's contract situation? I know, is that signed, sealed, delivered, or where are you at with that?
It's not signed, sealed, and delivered, and I don't want people to think that there's a change of heart on either side. Just I think with some of these things, sometimes there's just some very minor pieces that we're working through. And I think Tim would tell you, and I would tell you, I've been traveling a bunch. Yeah. He's been traveling, dealing with and it just, we're committed to each other, right? We just haven't said I do yet, kind of, right? And so it's just one of those things that is taking a little bit longer than it probably needs to, but not for a reason that there's any concern.
How open was communication? We talked a little bit about this in December, right before the Illinois State game, but the communication on his end to you that there were other parties interested in him.
He's always been really open, and that's where I think our relationship is really important. I know coaches at NDSU are going to get opportunities. Well, let's talk about them. Let's be open. If it's one that you say, hey, I really, this is my dream job, well, then I'll do everything I can to help you, right? I mean, not everybody's going to retire at NDSU. And so I think Tim and my relationship is really good where, he makes me aware when there's opportunities. We talk about it. Is there interest on your end, Tim, or not, or, whatever it might be. And I think it also then makes the contract negotiation conversations way easier too, because we're talking about that stuff all the time. And so that's why I appreciate his openness in our relationship.
For this deal, is this now competitive if an FBS invite comes to say we're positioned there? I know you were talking about positioning, that now our football staff is monetarily compensated, that we're ready for that move.
I would say yes and no. Yes and no. We're definitely well on our way. Okay. I would say that.
Is that a fundraising thing as well that you've got to hit on that if that's the deal on that?
Potentially.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right, let's break. We got one more segment with Matt. I want to hit a couple other topics going on and a few more emails coming in, which are always entertaining as well. We'll do that other side of the break. One more segment with Matt Larsen right after this. Oh, if only we could broadcast the off-air stuff, right? That's the, that's the good stuff. I really appreciate you coming by. We could do this like a monthly deal. Will you make that work? Because I think it would be fantastic.
No, we talked. I think if by doing this, if we can give folks maybe a little more inside look, I do it with 1660. I think that's been positive of just, hey, and fans have the opportunity to ask questions that, are burning in their minds or, want some clarifications. And no, I think it's positive.
Oh, I appreciate that. Let's do a few more here. Facility-wise, obviously the Dome, we've been around the bend on that. I know Rob's got his plans on doing some stuff with suites and seats. Is there anything else that you guys can, it's not your building, I understand, but in terms of making that a better facility for football?
Well, no, it's something that we feel really strongly about, and I think there's not only an obligation from the city and to do something as a city-owned facility on our campus. Same with Red Hawk Stadium in my mind. But I think the biggest piece right now is because the FargoDome being one of the finalists for the convention center site, very tied up and wrapped into that right now. And so I think so much of where that facility ends up, I think will dictate what the future and to the scope of what any potential renovations to the FargoDome may be. In terms for impacting Bison football, concerts, events, all that kind of stuff.
What was your surprise feedback on the votes on that in terms of why that didn't pass over the last 2 times?
Really crowded ballot was in talking to folks, and you're asking somebody to public safety over an improved facility. That's not too many things, or why don't you have some other thing that tugs at your heart. So that's really hard, and I get it, right? I get it. And so and part of it is too is, it's only folks in Fargo that vote, right? Because it impacts their tax specifically. It doesn't impact West Fargo or Horace or whatever it is. So it's just a very small group of folks. And I think, people rightfully so or, want to keep taxes down.
Yeah. And just to me, the building is so much beyond what it is for the 8 or 11 dates you use it for, 6 to 9 dates you use it for football, that it just, the cost of, and I can say I live in Moorhead, so I don't vote, but it just would seem like a slam dunk to me to make this happen.
And the only thing I would say is too, what's the alternative? Let it fall apart,
rot,
like the Civic Center has,
right?
Until you have to tear it down, and so to me it is iconic in a lot of ways in our community. It's a symbol of a lot of the things that we do, and why we would not try to improve it is beyond me.
Yeah, preaching to the choir on that. So open up 2026, Incarnate Word in San Antonio.
Yeah.
What do you know about any potential travel packages or anything in the works for that for fans to start the year?
We're definitely looking to that. I know Team Makers is looking at doing some flight options and those things like we've done in the past. Again,
that's
I think
another travel spot.
Honestly, one of my favorite cities to visit is San Antonio.
Okay.
I mean, I love the Riverwalk. I could eat Mexican food all day, every day, 3 meals a day. And so
Colin wouldn't like that, but you can try.
No, but I think that'll be something that'll be of great interest. I've actually talked to their AD, who I think they only have 6,000 seats, is actually potentially looking at bringing in some temporary bleachers just to accommodate NDSU fans. So, I would be if I wasn't working in the administration and I was a fan and couldn't get a ticket, I'd probably go down and try to get a watch party on the Riverwalk somewhere just to be down and be a part of it. But no, that'll be a fun weekend.
Email comes in. Domke asks Matt, the summit plans with Denver moving on. What do you know on that of any potential candidates looking to add to the league?
Well, I think first off, I think from an AD and a president's standpoint, I think we have a really good group of ADs and presidents, regardless of the institutions they represent. I think, and then when you actually pull the institutions, I think when we look at the 8 are here, now 8's not an ideal number long term, but if you have 8 that are committed and feel good about, then I think from a geographic standpoint, there's a lot of there's some good things that we can do. And so I think more than anything, presidents, ADs, even the league would probably say, yeah, expansion and getting to maybe a 10 or a 12 is important, but we need to be really thoughtful and not just do it to do it. In my opinion, I'm not speaking on behalf of NDSU or the Summit League. I think historically we've had schools in here that it really was a stopping point for them, and that's why we've seen so much transition. And so I think selfishly, from NDSU's perspective, if we could get schools that are coming in and are in for the long haul, to me, that's what's going to provide stability. Otherwise, we're going to be up to 9, down back to 8, to 10, to 9. And so I think just being really thoughtful is our goal.
I know the Summit League tournament put it up for bids on potential other sites. I think Minneapolis was reported as one of them. Would you like to see that tournament move like the FCS championship moved?
To me, it's delicate because one, if you look at from an attendance, from a revenue, from a distribution back to campuses, it's one of the best basketball tournaments in the country at any level. And so that's critically important. And I think if you ask student athletes, they love the atmosphere, even though people can argue, it's mostly blue and there's red and whatever it is. And I would say, well, let's challenge our fan bases to travel, right? I mean, if this is a year, we're right now midway through the year, almost at the midway point in conference, both of our teams are in first place and they're undefeated, I'd be booking my hotel rooms down in Sioux Falls and get my tickets to the Premier Center. It's one of my favorite weekends of the year. It's unbelievable.
Yep, it's great. I love going to it.
It's a great environment and atmosphere. So the only thing I would say in terms of thinking about moving it is we have a really good thing. Can we replicate that in other places? And maybe we can. Maybe the answer is yes, but there's a lot of pieces in there other than just location. It is revenue generating opportunity. It's all of those things.
On your to-do list when you get back to your office, what's 1 and 2 right now, things you're working on right now?
Oh, shoot. 1 and 2. Right. Well, 1 is fundraising. 2 is probably fundraising. No, those are just, that's really important to our livelihood. And then honestly, I think digging into some of the things we're doing from a cabinet level standpoint at the Division I level, just because I think we can really make some impactful change.
You think by this time next year we have resolution on anything eligibility or the college football calendar?
I think we would like to.
Yeah.
That's the goal, and I think it's an aggressive one, but I think there's some committed groups that want to see some headway there.
Be nice, because I think football's never been more popular. College football's never been more popular.
Right.
The rating for this, I'm sure, will come out later today. Is going to be crazy for the game Monday night, and that's the thing where the product is great. It's just everything around it is completely messed up right now, and that's where I think someone in your position, like, this is we gotta figure out what we're doing here.
The
right?
adults in the room have to come together
and
put in some rules in place that we can enforce, and then everybody in the room has to follow them.
Because you have the best tournament around. The NCAA basketball tournament is the best sporting event that we have. And to mess with that, because I know there's been a lot of saber rattling with that, I would hope that never comes to fruition, because that's perfect is the way it is.
No,
even if they want to go to 76, they're going to go to 76.
Yeah, it's really, really good. It's something that, again, whether you're a casual fan, you don't like basketball at all, you're filling out a bracket. Yeah. Right? I mean, and sometimes the ones that people have no idea what they're talking about, they end up doing okay. So I like the color of their jersey, so I'm going to pick them. And but it's so far-reaching, the level of engagement, and that's why it's so popular.
Last thing here, and I really appreciate you doing this here. When you look at where you're at, all athletics at NDSU right now, what one is there? Is there a sport when you're saying, okay, we've not reached our potential here. There's more we can do, and we're aiming our focus on that right now.
I would say, and again, I don't want to single one out. I would say, if I looked back over the last 6 years or so after COVID, because COVID impacted us in a lot of different ways, I would say it impacted our female sports probably greater than anything. And so I think the level of support that we've directed towards our female sports, because again, I mean, you look historically, our female sports have been some of our greatest strengths.
No
and so that's where, I mean, supporting those coaches and providing resources for them to, again, our goal is to compete at the top of the Summit League in every single sport and have opportunities for postseason. So, being able to support those student athletes and those coaches at a high level.
I know Tyler Oaks has got a game at Vanderbilt coming up. That's pretty good. We look ahead to the spring sports season. Mueller got a trip to Hawaii or Mexico, anything? He normally does that.
No,
he's
going to Alabama. And I think
that's right.
Right now, I'm supposed to. I usually try to travel with them at least once. But we might have some president search committee stuff, but looking to go there. And no, I'm excited about Tyler coming off last year. I mean, a lot of new faces there, but it's amazing though. I mean, I think just they do a great job of recruiting players for our program, understanding all that stuff. So, no, I'm excited about the spring. It's going to be here pretty soon, and maybe some nice weather, too.
Well, hopefully maybe the next time you come by, it's not going to be negative 30 outside. Thanks so much for doing this. I think it was really informative, and be well, and good luck this weekend. Appreciate the time, all right?
Awesome. Thanks, Tom.
Matt Larsen, NDSU Athletic Director, joining us here in studio, running a gamut of questions here. We come back, we'll chat with his women's basketball head coach, Jory Collins, after the Bison win last night at St. Thomas. It's coming up when we return.